of Lord Krishna and sprinkled the water on their heads. After this, he offered Lord Krishna various kinds of yellow silken garments and presented heaps of jewelry and ornaments before him for his use. King Yudhisthira felt such ecstasy by honoring Krishna, his only lovable object, that tears glided down from his eyes, and although he wanted to see Lord Krishna, he could not see him very well. When Lord Krishna was thus worshipped by King Yudhisthira, all the members present in the assembly stood up with folded hands and began to chant, Jai Jai Namaha Namaha. All joined together to respectful obeisances to Krishna, and there were showers of flowers from the sky. In that King Shishupal was also present. He was an avowed enemy of Krishna for many reasons, especially because of Krishna's having stolen Rukmini from his intended marriage ceremony. Therefore, he could not tolerate such honoring of Krishna and glorification of his qualities. Instead of being happy to hear of the glories of the Lord, he became very angry. When everyone offered respect to Krishna by standing up, Shishupal remained in his seat. But as he became angrier at Krishna's being honored, he stood up suddenly, raised his hand, and spoke very strongly and fearlessly against Lord Krishna in such a way that the Lord Krishna could hear him distinctly. Ladies and gentlemen, I can appreciate now the statement of the Vedas that, after all, time is the predominating factor. In spite of all endeavors to the contrary, the time element executes its own plan without opposition. For example, one may try his best to live, but when the time of death comes, no one can check it. I see here that although many stalwart personalities are present in this assembly, the influence of time is so strong that they have been misled by the statement of a boy who has foolishly spoken about Krishna. Many learned sages and elder persons are present, but still they have accepted the statement of a foolish boy. This means that by the influence of time, even the intelligence of such honored persons as those present in this meeting can be misdirected. I fully agree with the respectable persons present here that they are competent to select the personality, but I do not agree with the statement of a boy like Sahadev, who has spoken so highly and has recommended that he is fit to accept the first worship in the sacrifice. I can see that in this meeting there are many personalities who have undergone great austerities, who are highly learned, and who have performed many penances. But their knowledge and direction, they can deliver, by their knowledge and direction, they can deliver many persons who are suffering from the pangs of material existence. There are great rishis here whose knowledge has no bounds, as well as many self-realized persons and brahmanas also. And therefore I think that any one of them could have been selected for the first worship, because they are worshipable even by the great demigods, kings and emperors. I cannot understand how you have selected this cowherd boy Krishna and have left aside all these great personalities. I think Krishna to be no better than a crow. How can he be fit to accept first worship in this great sacrifice? We cannot even ascertain which caste this Krishna belongs to, or what his actual occupational duty is. Actually, Krishna does not belong to any caste, nor does he have to perform any occupational duty. It is stated in the Vedas that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do as his prescribed duty. Whatever has to be done on his behalf is executed by his different energies. Shishupal continued, Krishna does not belong to a high family. He is so independent that no one knows his principles of religious life. Indeed, it appears that he is outside the jurisdiction of all religious principles. He always acts independently, not caring for the Vedic injunctions and regulative principles. Therefore, he is devoid of all good qualities. I'll just jumped again.
It's Prabhupada lecture, Krishna book.
Krishna book. I've got it. He always acknowledges. Therefore, he is devoid of all good qualities. Shishupal indirectly praised Krishna by saying that he is not within the jurisdiction of the Vedic injunctions. This is true because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That he has no good qualities, gunai hina, means that Krishna has no material qualities. And because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he acts independently, not caring for conventions in social or religious principles. Shishupal continued, under these circumstances, how can he be fit to accept the first worship in the sacrifice? Krishna is so foolish that he has left Mathura, which is inhabited by highly elevated persons, following the Vedic culture, and has taken shelter in the ocean, where there is not even talk of the Vedas. Instead of living openly, he has constructed a fort within the water and is living in a place where there is no discussion of Vedic knowledge. And whenever he comes out of the fort, he simply harasses the citizens like a dacoit, thief, or rogue. Shishupal went crazy because of Krishna's being elected the supreme first worship person in that meeting. And he spoke so irresponsibly that it appeared he had lost all his good fortune. Being overcast with misfortune, Shishupal continued to insult Krishna, and Lord Krishna patiently heard him without protest. Just as a lion does not care when a flock of jackals howl, Lord Krishna remained silent and unprovoked. Krishna did not reply to even a single accusation made by Shishupal. But all the members present in the meeting, except for a few who agreed with Shishupal, were very much agitated, because it is the duty of any respectable person not to tolerate blasphemy against God or his devotee. Some of them who thought that they could not properly take action against Shishupal left the assembly in protest, covering their ears with their hands in order not to hear further accusations. Thus they left the meeting, condemning the action of Shishupal. It is the Vedic injunction that whenever there is blasphemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must immediately leave. If he does not do so, he becomes bereft of his pious activities and is degraded to a lower condition of life. All the kings present, belonging to the Kuru dynasty, Matsya dynasty, Kekaya dynasty, and Srinjaya dynasty, were very angry and immediately took up their swords and shields to kill Shishupal, who was so foolish that he was not even slightly agitated, although all the kings present were ready to. Shishupal did not care to think of the pros and cons of his foolish talking, and instead of stopping, they were going to fight in the arena of the auspicious Rajasuya Yajna. He personally pacified them. His causeless mercy, he decided to kill Shishupal. When Shishupal was abusing the kings who were about to attack him, Lord Krishna took up his disc as sharp as the blade of a razor and immediately separated Shishupal's head from his body. When Shishupal was thus killed, a great roar and howl went up from the crowd. Taking advantage of that disturbance, the few kings who were supporters of Shishupal quickly left the assembly out of fear of their lives. Then the fortunate Shishupal's spirit soul immediately merged into the body of Lord Krishna in the presence of all, exactly as a burning meteor falls to the surface of the globe. The merging of Shishupal's soul into the transcendental body of Krishna's reminds us of the story of Jai and Vijay, who fell to the material world from the Vaikuntha planets upon being cursed by the four Kumaras. For their return to the Vaikuntha world, it was arranged that both Jai and Vijay, for 3 consecutive births, would act as deadly enemies of the Lord, and that at the end of their lives they would return to the Vaikuntha world and serve the Lord as his associates. Although Shishupal acted as the enemy of Krishna, he was not for a single moment out of Krishna consciousness. He was always absorbed in thought of Krishna, and thus he first got the salvation of Sayujya Mukti, merging into the existence of the Supreme Lord, and was finally reinstated in his original position of service. The Bhagavad Gita corroborates the fact that one who is absorbed in the thought of the Supreme Lord at the time of death immediately enters the kingdom of God after quitting his material body. After the salvation of Shishupal, King Yudhisthira rewarded all the members present in the sacrificial assembly. He generously remunerated the priests and learned sages for their engagement in the execution of the sacrifice, and after performing all this routine work, he took his bath. This bath at the end of the sacrifice is also technical. It is called the Avavrita bath. Lord Krishna thus enabled the performance of the Rajasuya Yajna arranged by King Yudhisthira to be successfully completed, and being requested by his cousins and relatives, he remained in Hastinapur for a few months more. Although King Yudhisthira and his brothers were unwilling to have Lord Krishna leave Hastinapur, Krishna arranged to take permission from the king to return to Dwarka, and thus he returned home along with his queens and ministers. The story of the fall of Jai and Vijay from the Vaikuntha planets to the material world is described in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The killing of Shishupal has a direct link with the narrations of Jai and Vijay, but the most important instruction we get from this incident is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being absolute, can give salvation to everyone, whether one acts as an enemy or as his friend. It is therefore a misconception that the Lord acts with someone in relationship of friend and someone else in the relationship of enemy. His being an enemy or friend is always on the absolute platform. There is no material distinction. After King Yudhisthira took his bath at the conclusion of the sacrifice and stood in the midst of all the learned sages and Brahmins, he seemed exactly like the King of Heaven, and thus looked very beautiful. King Yudhisthira generously rewarded all the demigods who participated in the yajna, and being greatly satisfied, all of them left, praising the king's activities and glorifying Lord Krishna. When Shukadeva Goswami narrated these incidents of Krishna's killing Shishupal and described the successful execution of the Rajasuya Yajna by Maharaj Yudhisthira, he also pointed out that after the successful termination of the Yajna, only one person was unhappy. He was Duryodhana by nature, was very envious because of his sinful life, and he appeared in the dynasty of the Kurus like a chronic disease personified to destroy the whole family. Shukadeva Goswami assured Maharaj Parikshit that the pastimes of Lord Krishna, killing of Shishupal and Jarasandha, and the releasing of the imprisoned kings are all transcendental vibrations. And anyone who hears these narrations from authorized persons will immediately be free from the reactions of the sinful activities of his life. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 74th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of Shishupal.
Next. Next.
Next.
Huh? No Dibdhan. So we can read now. How big is next?
Next is why Duryodhana felt insulted at the end of the Rajasuya sacrifice.
Insulted. Yudhishthira, what happened? Next?
Next, you want the next chapter?
Yeah, what is this?
This is the chapter's titled, at least here it's titled, Why Duryodhana Felt Insulted at the End of the Rajasuya Sacrifice.
Must be small, no? Huh?
So, oh yeah, it's not too long. Medium.
Yeah, okay.
Small.
Medium, okay.
King Yudhisthira was known as Ajatasattu, or
What does it mean, Ajatasattu?
No animal has been born that nobody has been born that is descended.
therefore, when all the men, demigods, kings, sages, and saints saw the successful termination of the Rajasuya Yajna performed by King Yudhisthira, they were very happy. That Duryodhana alone was unhappy was astonishing to Maharaj Parikshit, and therefore he requested Shukadeva Goswami to explain this. Shukadeva Goswami said, "My dear King Parikshit, your grandfather, King Yudhisthira, was a great soul. His congenial disposition attracted everyone to be his friend, and therefore he was known as Ajatasattu, one who never created an enemy. He engaged all the members of the Kuru dynasty in taking charge of different departments for the management of the Rajasuya sacrifice. For example, Bhimasen was put in charge of the Duryodhana in charge of the supplies. Sahadev was in charge of guest reception, guests. Yeah. Nakul was in charge. Go down. This was in charge of the store department.
Store, Bhandara.
And what was Arjun in charge of looking after? It says Arjuna is in charge of looking after the comforts of the elder persons. The most astonishing feature was that Krishna
what for?
It says incoming guests.
Incoming guest.
The queen, the goddess of fortune, Draupadi, was in charge of
Sages, all the sages.
yeah, like serving the food, administering.
Serving for
Karna. This guy lived long. I was thinking about him.
Karna was famous for giving charity. He was put in charge of the charity department. In this way, Satyaki, Vikarna, Hadikya, Vidura,
No, Tony.
Santardam,
Headache.
Burishrava, the son of Bhakrika, were all engaged in different departments for managing the affairs of the Rajasuya sacrifice. They were all so bound in loving affection for King Yudhisthira that they simply wanted to please him. After Shishupal died by the mercy of Lord Krishna and merged into the spiritual existence, and after the end of the Rajasuya Yajna, when all the friends, guests, and well-wishers had been fully honored and rewarded, King Yudhisthira went to bathe in the Ganges. The city of Hastinapur stands today on the bank of the Yamuna, and the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam that King Yudhisthira went to bathe in the Ganges indicates, therefore, that during the time of the Pandavas, the river Jamuna was also known as the Ganges. While the king was taking the Avabrita bath, different musical instruments, many groups of professional singers sang as venas, flutes, gongs, and cymbals were played, and thus a tumultuous sound vibrated in the sky. The princely guests from many kingdoms like Srinjaya, Kamboja, Kuru, Kekaya, Koshala were present with their different flags and gorgeously decorated elephants, chariots, horses, and soldiers. All of them passed in a procession from King Yudhisthira in the forefront. The executive members who had performed the sacrifice, the priests, religious leaders, all loudly chanted the Vedic hymns. The demigods and inhabitants of Pitriloka and Gandharvaloka, as well as many sages, showered flowers from the sky. The men and women of Hastinapur, or Indraprastha, their bodies smeared with scents and floral oils, were nicely dressed in colorful garments and decorated with garlands, jewels, and ornaments. Enjoying the ceremony, they threw on one another liquid substances like water, oil, milk, butter, and yogurt. Some even smeared these on each other's bodies. In this way, they enjoyed the occasion. The professional prostitutes jubilantly smeared these liquid substances on the bodies of the men, and the men reciprocated in the same way. All the liquid substances had been mixed with turmeric and saffron, and their color was a lustrous yellow. In order to observe the great ceremony, many wives of the demigods had come in different aeroplanes, and they were visible in the sky. Similarly, the queens of the royal family, gorgeously decorated and surrounded by bodyguards, arrived on different palanquins. During this time, Lord Krishna, the maternal cousin of the Pandavas, and his special friend Arjuna were both throwing the liquid substances on the bodies of the queens. The queens became bashful, but at the same time, their beautiful smiling brightened their faces. Because of the liquids thrown on their bodies, the saris covering them became completely wet. The different parts of their beautiful bodies, particularly their breasts and their waists, became partially visible because of the wet cloth. The queens brought buckets of the same liquid substances and with syringes sprinkled them on the bodies of their brothers-in-law. As they engaged in such jubilant activities, their hair fell loose, and the flowers decorating their bodies began to fall. When Lord Krishna, Arjuna, and the queens were thus engaged in these jubilant activities, persons who were not clean in heart were agitated by lustful desires. In other words, such behavior between pure males and females is enjoyable, but it makes persons who are materially contaminated become lustful. King Yudhisthira, in a gorgeous chariot yoked to excellent horses, was present there, along with his queens, including Draupadi. And their features were so beautiful that it appeared as if the great Rajasuya sacrifice was standing there in person, along with the different functions of sacrifice. Following the Rajasuya sacrifice, there was the Vedic ritualistic duty known as Patni Samyaga, the sacrifice which one performs along with one's wife, and also duly conducted by the priests of King Yudhisthira. As Queen Draupadi and King Yudhisthira were taking their Avabrita bath, the citizens of Hastinapur, as well as the demigods, began to beat on drums and blow trumpets out of feelings of happiness. And there was a shower of flowers from the sky. When the king and the queen finished their bath in the Ganges, all the other citizens, consisting of all the Varnas, or castes, and Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, took their baths in the Ganges. Bathing in the Ganges is recommended in the Vedic literature because by such bathing, one is freed from all sinful reactions. This is still current in India, especially at particular auspicious moments. At such times, millions of people bathe in the Ganges. After taking his bath, King Yudhisthira dressed in a new silken cloth and wrapper and decorated himself with valuable jewelry. The king not only dressed himself and decorated himself, but also gave clothing and ornaments to all the priests and the others who had participated in the yajnas. In this way, he worshipped them all. He constantly worshipped his friends, his family members, his relatives, his well-wishers, and everyone present. And because he was a Vaishnava, he knew how to treat everyone well. The Mayavadi philosophers' endeavor to see everyone as God is an ardent oneness. But a Vaishnava or a devotee of Lord Narayan sees every living entity as part and parcel of the Lord. Therefore, a Vaishnava's treatment of other living entities is on the absolute platform, as one cannot treat one part of his body differently from another part because all belong to the same body. A Vaishnava does not see a human being as distinct from an animal because in both he sees the soul and the supersoul seated together. When everyone was refreshed after bathing and was dressed in silken clothing with jeweled earrings, flower garlands, turbans, long wrappers, and pearl necklaces, they looked altogether like the demigods from heaven. This was especially true of the women, who were very nicely dressed. Each wore a golden belt around the waist. They were all smiling, with spots of tilak and curling hair scattered here and there. This combination was very attractive. Those persons who had participated in the Rajasuya sacrifice, including the most cultured priests, the Brahmins who had assisted, the citizens of all the Varnas, and the kings, demigods, sages, saints, and citizens of Pitruloka, were all very much satisfied by the dealings of King Yudhisthira. And at the end, they happily departed for their residences. While returning to their homes, they talked of the dealings of King Yudhisthira. And even after continuous talk of his greatness, they were not satiated. Just as one may drink nectar over and over again and never be satisfied. After the departure of all the others, Maharaj Yudhisthira restrained the inner circle of his friends, including Lord Krishna, not allowing them to leave. Lord Krishna could not refuse the request of the king. Krishna therefore sent back all the heroes of the Yadu dynasty, Samba and others. all of them returned to Dwarka, and Krishna, the Lord Krishna personally remained to give pleasure to the king. In the material world, everyone has a particular type of desire to be fulfilled, but one is never able to fulfill his desires to his full satisfaction. But King Yudhisthira, because of his unflinching devotion to Krishna, could fulfill all his desires successfully by the performance of the Rajasuya sacrifice. From the description of the Rajasuya Yajna, such a function appears to be a great ocean of opulent desires. Such an ocean is not possible for an ordinary man to cross. Nevertheless, by the grace of Lord Krishna, King Yudhisthira was able to cross it very easily, and he became freed from all anxieties. When Duryodhana saw that Maharaj Yudhisthira had become very famous after performing the Rajasuya Yajna, and was fully satisfied in every respect, he began to burn with the fire of envy, because his mind was always poisonous. For one thing, he envied the imperial palace constructed by the demon Maya for the Pandavas. The palace was excellent in its puzzling artistic workmanship, and was befitting the position of great princes, kings or leaders of the demons. In that great palace, the Pandavas lived with their family members, and Queen Draupadi served her husbands very peacefully. And because in those days Lord Krishna was also there, the palace was also decorated by his thousands of queens. When the queens, with their heavy breasts and thin waists, moved within the palace, and their ankle bells rang very melodiously with their movement, the whole palace appeared more opulent than the heavenly kingdom. Because a portion of their breasts was sprinkled with saffron powder, the pearl necklaces on their breasts appeared reddish. With the beautiful earrings and flowing hair, the queens appeared very attractive. After seeing such beauties in the palace of King Yudhisthira, Duryodhana was envious. He was especially envious and lustful upon seeing the beauty of Draupadi, because he had cherished a special attraction for her from the very beginning of her marriage with the Pandavas. In the marriage selection assembly of Draupadi, Duryodhana had also been present, and along with other princes, he had been very much captivated by the beauty of Draupadi, but he had failed to achieve it.
He asked me, I didn't say.
Once upon a time, King Yudhisthira was sitting on his golden throne in the palace constructed by the demon Maya. His 4 brothers and other relatives, as well as his great well-wisher Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, were present. And the material opulence of King Yudhisthira seemed no less than that of Lord Brahma. When he was sitting on the throne, surrounded by his friends, addressed to him in the form of nice songs. Duryodhana came to the palace with his younger brothers. Duryodhana was decorated with a helmet, and he carried a sword in his hand. He was always in an envious and angry mood, and therefore on a slight provocation, he spoke sharply with the doorkeepers and became angry. By the craftsmanship of the demon Maya, the palace was so decorated in different places that one who did not know the tricks would consider water to be land and land to be water. Duryodhana was illusioned by this craftsmanship, and when crossing water, thinking it to be land, he fell in. When Duryodhana, out of his foolishness, had thus fallen, the queens enjoyed the incident by laughing. King Yudhisthira could understand the feelings of Duryodhana, and he tried to restrain the queens, but Lord Krishna indicated that King Yudhisthira should not restrain them from enjoying the incident. Krishna desired that Duryodhana be fooled in that way, and that all of them enjoy his foolish behavior. When everyone laughed, Duryodhana felt very insulted, and his bodily hairs stood up in anger. Being thus insulted, he immediately left the palace, bowing his head. He was silent and did not protest. When Duryodhana left in such an angry mood, everyone regretted the incident, and King Yudhisthira also was very sorry. But despite all these occurrences, Krishna was silent. He did not say anything against or in favor of the incident. It appeared that Duryodhana had been put into illusion by the supreme will of Lord Krishna, and this was the beginning of the enmity between the two sects of the Kuru dynasty. This appeared to be a part of Krishna's plan in his mission to decrease the burden of the world. King Parikshit had inquired from Shukadeva Goswami why Duryodhana was not satisfied after the termination of the great Rajasuya sacrifice, and thus it was explained by Shukadeva Goswami. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 75th chapter of Krishna, why Duryodhana felt insulted at the end of the Rajasuya sacrifice.
Question? Prabhupada said, no question. Just relish. Seems to be many don't see faces, no? Some, many gone. I don't know what to say now. Only to ask if we are here, tomorrow also come. Yes? You won't be here tomorrow. Some should not be here. You won't be here. We can. Morning have class in the Gosala? Yeah?
Yes.
So goes fast, start chanting. Huh? Since they are going, some has to take some initiative, to do kirtan. Huh? Having something to read, cell phone or anything from there, Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll try to come in due time. As long as I is here and help permits. समझ गया everybody? As long as I help permit, I try. Otherwise you are here, your Sangeetan, Krishna, Sudama there, who else can? Pitambar is there. Krishna Lapa is there. Who is Pitambar? Only class? They'll be here in the morning. Break?
I think he needs a break from giving class.
Who?
I don't know.
Do you think so?
Where is Shamsundar can give class?
Otherwise Shamsundar can give class. I hope. Shamsundar give class in what language?
Hindi.
Hindi? तो अंग्रेजी कैसे समझेगा?
चले जाएगा साहब.
You will translate.
I'm saying, but there is no translation, they will go.
Shamsundar can also speak English.
Oh, yeah.
Much better than? Yes. Anything else I can think of?
You want some tour?
Hmm?
You can visit some places. Some tour.
Some places tour.
Tour.
I was talking, but they are all going away. Still you can manage?
Yes.
I was talking to who? Him. Some places. Surya Kund or Badrinath. Huh? Satraj manager is here. আচ্ছা বাসে কত লাগে এখান থেকে বদ্রীনাথ? অনেক বেশি।
Traveler bus, because they're not so many. Sankirtan and traveler, I think it's not so much.
উইদিন 50 হয়ে যাবে, কম লাগবে না? হ্যাঁ জি। What about prasad? Breakfast take from here and lunch cook there. Where now Surya Kund is in the hand of Gaudiya, not that same boy. We have to talk. Otherwise, you have to go to maybe Terikadam. How far? Near. Nandagaon. So Binda Kund breakfast. Na? Last time we did Binda Kund breakfast. Noon prasad, Terikadam. Not very far. Instead of Nandagaon, we went to where? Nearby? Vrindakund. Vrindakund, Nandagaon, just a few kilometers. You can see Nandagaon on the top.
On the left, there is
Terikadam. Huh? Kashishwar Mahadev. Harishwar?
Shiva was see Krishna.
Yes. You can tell you are Gujarati.
No, they know.
Any other manager? Ladies manager? Who? It will be within 50? আজকে রাতে বাস করা যায় না क्या tonight we can arrange everything and tomorrow can go? No. To huh?
Even for you,
Huh?
next day. I think it's much even for you.
Is tiresome for me? Don't think I can manage.
It's okay.
I'm okay now. Is it possible tomorrow also?
If the bus is ready,
Can this bus ready tonight? You can talk.
buses will be free. More buses will be free because there is no crowd now. All the buses are empty.
What about khana pina? अभी चेक करेगा कितना वक्त जाएगा? हाँ कि देखो ना तुम पूछो कितना वक्त जाएगा? Raise hand. I told Nandagaon, Terikadam, Vrindakund. Nandagaon, I won't get up. No need to go. Panda.
I want Varshana. Where is there? Varshana is there.
She had to get up her backside. We give more, not sightseeing, more Harikatha.
Please raise your hand. If tomorrow
Yeah. Tomorrow want to go. Vrindakund, Terikadam.